It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. A Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
This is a story
about a family with all very unique personalities
who reside in Hartford, England.
The father and children
are left to suffer under the whims and wishes of
their hypochondriac mother, whose only ambition in life is to marry off her girls. ASAP.
Such trembling, such flutterings all over me.
In spite of these characters,
such spasms in my side and pains in my head.
This story has everything it needs to be adored and acclaimed by all.
Love, hate,
romance, revenge,
friendship, and tolerance.
A Pride and Prejudice, presenting Mr.
and Mrs. Bennet and their 5 beautiful
silly daughters. Jane,
Lizzie,
Maui,
Kitty, and Lydia. My dear Mr. Bennet, have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last? Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune. He came down on Monday and been chasing forward to see the place, as if it had to be in the house by the end of next week.
What is his name?
Bingley.
Is he married or single?
Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune. 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What's a fine thing for our girls?
How so? How can it affect them?
My dear Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I am thinking of his marrying one of them.
Is that his design in settling here?
Design? Nonsense, how can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as he comes.
I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will be still better. Yeah, for you are as handsome as any of them. Mr. Bingley might, like you best of the party?
My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty. But I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty.
In such cases, a woman has often, not much beauty to think of.
Oh! But my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighborhood.
It is more than I engage for, I assure you.
But consider your daughters, only think of what an establishment it would be for one of them. And you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not.
Oh, you are over-scrupulous, Shirley. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you, and I will send a few lines by you of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Though, I must put in a good word for my little Lizzie.
I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie's not a bit better than the others, and I am sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humored as Lydia, but you are always giving her the preference.
They are all silly and ignorant, like other girls. But Lizzie has something more of quickness than her sisters.
Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves.
You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least.
You do not know what I suffer.
But I hope you shall get over it and live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood.
It will be no use to us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them.
Depend upon it, my dear, that when there are 20, I will visit them all.
Mr. Bennet was among the earliest of those who waited on Mr. Bingley. He had always intended to visit him, though to the last, always assuring his wife that he should not go. Until the evening after the visit was paid, she had no knowledge of it.
It was then disclosed.
I am sick of Mr. Bingley!
Oh, I am very sorry to hear that, but why did you not tell me so before? If I had known as much this morning, I certainly would not have called, and it's very unlucky as I've actually paid the visit. We cannot escape the acquaintance now.
How good it was in you, dear Mr. Bennet!
I hope, my dear, that you have ordered a good dinner today, as I expect in addition to our family party. The person of whom I speak is a gentleman and a stranger.
A gentleman and a stranger? It is Mr. Bingley, I'm sure. Why, Jane, you never dropped a word of this, you sly thing. Why try to be extremely fancy, Mr. Bingley?
Hello, Mr. Bingley! Oh, it is a person whom I never saw in the whole course of my life. It is from my cousin, Mr. Collins, who, when I am dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases.
Oh, my dear, I do not think it's the hardest thing in the world that your estate should be held away from your own children.
It certainly is a most iniquitous affair, and nothing can clear Mr. Collins from the guilt of inheriting Longbourn, but perhaps, if you will listen to his letter, you may be a little softened by his manner of expressing himself.
Pray, do not talk of that odious man.
Mr. Collins, madame, I am very sensible, madame, of the heart to my fair cousins, and could say much on the subject, but I am cautious of appearing forward and precipitate. But perhaps when we are better acquainted. He intended to marry one of the daughters. Miss Bennet's lovely face confirmed his views, and for the first evening, she was his settled choice.
The next morning, however, made an alteration, a caution against the very Jane he had fixed on. Her eldest daughter, she must just mention, was likely to be very soon engaged. Mr. Collins had only to change from Jane to Elizabeth, and it was soon done.
Mr. Collins made his declaration.
But it is impossible to do otherwise than decline. Oh, Mr. Bennett! You are running immediately, for we are all in an uproar. You must come and make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins for 2 pounds, and she will tap him. And if you do not make haste, he shall change his mind and not tap her.
I have not the pleasure of understanding you. What are you talking?
Of Mr. Collins and Lizzie. Lizzie declared that she will not tap Mr. Collins, and Mr. Collins begins to say that she will not tap Lizzie. Speak to Lizzie Bennett yourself. Tell her that you insist upon her marrying him.
Come here, my child. I understand that Mr. Collins has made you an offer of marriage. And this offer of marriage you have refused?
I have, sir.
Very well. We now come to the point. Your mother insists upon you accepting it all. Is it not so, Mrs. Bennet?
Yes, or I will never see her again.
An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. For Mr. You must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins. Oh, and I will never see you again if you do. Such dreadful news, it cannot be concealed from anyone. The youngest sister, Lydia, has left all her friends, has eloped,
Touching!
has thrown herself into the power of dun 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 dun, Mr. Wickham. Oh!
She is lost forever.
Mr. Gardiner, after his general assurances of affection for her and her family, told her that he meant to be in London the very next day and would assist Mr. Bennet in every endeavour for recovering Lydia.
Oh, my dear brother, that is exactly what I could most wish for. And I'll do when you get to town, find them out wherever they may be, and if they're not married already, make them married. And if all things keep Mr. Bennet from fighting, what a dreadful state I am in, that I'm frightened out of my wits, and have such tremblings, such flutterings all over me, such spasms in my side, and pains in my head, and such beatings on heart, that I can get no rest by night, nor by day. Oh, brother, how kind you are, and so unable to contrive it all.
I wish I could say, for the sake of her family, that the establishment of so many of her children produced so happy an effect as to make her a sensible, amiable, and well-informed woman for the rest of her life.
I admire all my sons-in-law highly. Wickham perhaps is my favorite. But I think I shall like Lizzie's husband quite as well as James.
Though perhaps it was lucky for her husband that she was still occasionally nervous and invariably silly.